What is going on, everybody? ZyoniK here, and in today's video we're diving into the Spring Cup, a new Great League meta that we haven't seen before, and it's going to allow fairy, grass, and water type Pokemon. Now this team may be one that you guys recognized. I actually built it and used it earlier this year in the Open Great League because of how strong it was at countering and drawing out those lanterns, which is very common in the meta, and it's going to be common in this meta as well. One thing I want you guys to note with the Mantine moveset, after doing my sets, I would have changed Ice Beam to Aerial Ace just in hindsight because it would have been a lot more useful in some neutral situations like a Pokemon like Tentacruel, for example. Alright, getting into the first battle, we have Ferrothorn on the lead versus Tentacruel. So, pretty positive matchup right here, especially since we do have Thunder. Now, I did decide to choose to keep Thunder on this moveset instead of Flash Cannon because I wanted to have the ability to do super effective damage to Pelipper, Mantine, and Tentacruel in this meta. Now we do see a swap out right away into the Trevenant, which Mantine can handle pretty well. We do need to watch out for Shadow Ball. It does do a lot of neutral damage, so we're going to go ahead and shield, and it was the Shadow Ball. So perfect. This is now an opportunity for us to load up on energy and now go for an Ice Beam, as this will one-shot. This is beautiful thing about having Ice Beam. Boom! Takes out Trevenants. You'll love to see it. So Trevenant goes down, and let's see what we can do now. They probably have another Grass-type Pokemon in the back, so we will see the Tentacruel come back out. And the Grass-type Pokemon in the back, whatever it is not probably going to be tough for a Ferrothorn to go toe-to-toe with. Trevenant is the hardest grass Pokemon in this meta for Ferrothorn really to take down outside of something spicy like a Roserade with Weather Ball, for example. So we're going to go ahead and swap back now into the Ferrothorn because I'm guessing Mantine might have a better situation or a better matchup in the back potentially if it is another grass. So we're going to go ahead and now let these charge moves go through, as we do have a good amount of energy and a good amount of health here on our Ferrothorn. So they decide to swap out, and it's actually going to be a Ferrothorn mirror, which is perfectly fine. We can go for Thunder right here. Everything is resisted, but Thunder is just going to be doing just a bit more damage. As we're going to get hit pretty hard though because we do have Acid Spray debuff on us. But notice that this team, like the Mantine and Ferrothorn, already are doing incredibly well. As you guys saw, their Thunder hit a lot harder because of that Acid Spray debuff. But we haven't even need to use Tentacruel yet, but our win condition here is probably what you guys can see. It's closing this game out with our own Tentacruel in the mirror match. So what we need to do here is just try to do as much chip damage as we can with Power Whip and Thunder, as they're going to go ahead and try to farm us down, but they're not going to be able to because I can get to the Power Whip in time, now forcing that final shield from them. And this is looking to be a good game as they do decide to shield it. We're going to go ahead and look to come in with Mantine and go for the Ice Beam, and I will give up a shield here as well, as this is CMP tie. They are out of shields, which means this Ice Beam will land. And the matchup in the back is a mirror fight, Tentacruel versus Tentacruel, which is already pretty low on their side. So we're going to go ahead and swap out right away, and that is going to be a good game as they will decide to surrender right there. All right, moving into the next one. So the read of Double Grass was good, and the read of being safe to swap in Ferrothorn was good. All right, so we have Lantern here on the lead, and we have an Araquanid that swaps in, so we're going to go ahead and bring in that Mantine. And this is a situation where I looked at this and I'm like, you know, I wish I'd had Aerial Ace. Now, I could have easily just TM'd this. This was actually, I think, game number 2. I know it's game number 2 here, but when I do like 3 or 4 sets, I try to take the best battles, wins, and losses from them to showcase what the team is capable of. And in this game, this was actually my game 2, I believe, I realized real quick that, you know what, maybe I should use Aerial Ace, but I've already committed to the Ice Beam, and I think it's okay to note that you guys could try Aerial Ace. Now, Aerial Ace in itself is a pretty garbage move, but the super effective damage in situations like this, or the neutral damage to something like Tentacruel, would be a bit more ideal. Now, in this situation, we want to maintain switch advantage because we want to have Ferrothorn aligned to the Lantern. So we will see them swap back into the Trevenant here now. I could have thrown an Ice Beam. That was a mistake. The second I swapped right away, I knew I should have just thrown that Ice Beam because that energy is going to go nowhere on Araquanid. I should have thrown the Ice Beam here, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and go for Acid Sprays now just to do as much damage as possible, or lower their defenses so we can do as much damage with Poison Jabs right here, as we will have to shield this next Seed Bomb and try to see if we can commit to the farm down. No! When we're committed, we got a double shield now. Again, it's about maintaining positive switch advantage because we want to have Ferrothorn aligned to the Lantern. That's how good of a matchup it is. I'm comfortable being in the 0 shields versus 2 shields versus that Lantern. It's going to be close, but I think we can do it. So we're going to go ahead and try to do as much damage with Poison Jab and Acid Spray as possible. And now we come in with Ferrothorn right here and load up on energy. They're likely going to be swapping, which they catch it right here. And I was predicting that, but I clicked Power Whip way too quick. So we take out the Araquanid anyway, so now it's Lantern versus our Ferrothorn and our Mantine. So this is actually a tough situation right here. Thunderbolt does do a decent amount of chip damage, but what I really need to do is try to double Power Whip and do as much Bullet Seed damage as possible, which is the fast move here, so that Mantine can get to a charge move versus the Lantern and KO it, which is actually a situation where Ice Beam, I think, clutches it. I don't know if it clutches it. I'm not foretelling right here. We're going to go ahead. Sorry to ruin it for you. I'd be curious to see if the Ice Beam and Aerial, I think Aerial Ace wouldn't KO from this range. So what we're going to see here is the charge move does land. It is going to be Thunderbolt. We survive with 1 HP. We swap right away and go for Ice Beam. Now, is this going to be enough? I think Aerial Ace, yeah, neither would have been enough, but yeah, that's going to be a good game. I think we would have gotten to the Bubble Beam had we thrown the Aerial Ace, so that would have been a KO either way, I think. So good game. All right, we got Ferrothorn now versus Trevenant. So this is actually a really tough lead for us to handle, so we have to swap into Tentacruel right away, and they decide to come into the mirror match. So this is actually interesting. It's kind of like those Vigoroth mirror matches where the later you are, the harder it is for them to flip this around. So what I'm going to do is go for an Acid Spray first. They're likely going for an Acid Spray. I no-shield this first one. And then what I like to do in this Tentacruel matchup is after one Acid Spray is it's safe to go for Scalds. Scald does do resisted damage, but because of the defensive drop from our Acid Spray, it actually chunks. It does a considerable amount of damage, where now, because they decide to let it go, I can safely shield and flip this mid-game matchup around as they do decide to throw the Scald, which is why coming into the mirror fight can be tough, just like Vigoroth. I say it's like Vigoroth because that's what I learned in 2019 in the Jungle Cup from the Sylph Arena. You never swap a Vigoroth into a safe swap Vigoroth. It's a cardinal sin of PvP. But as we can see, we got the Acid Spray debuff, we got Trevenant down to 50% HP, and Mantine can easily come in and look to farm down. Now, we're going to go ahead and give up a shield here, as I predicted it was probably going to be the Shadow Ball, and they decide to bring in Walrein. So now this is a very tough situation for us, because Walrein has the capability to take out our Ferrothorn and Mantine, but thankfully, because of Mantine's Bubble Beam right here, this is actually going to dramatically lower the damage output that this Shadow Walrein can do, which is perfect. So we're going to go ahead and swap now into Ferrothorn to try to catch the charge move. Either charge move is going to be neutral, Icicle Spear, or Earthquake, but I wanted to maintain health on my Mantine so that it can take out the Trevenant in the back, because I imagine it's going to have to try to survive a Shadow Ball. So we are tanking these charge moves. It hurts. And now we're in a tough situation where, do we win this game with fast moves and trust in that, or do we try to win the game with getting 2 shields and maybe Mantine gets to the Bubble Beam against Trevenant? That's what I'm trying to predict, and I decided to go for the charge moves instead of fast moves. So I'm going to go ahead and go for double Power Whip here, which is unfortunate because it's not going to be, or it is going to be enough to KO, and now I'm trying to swap, but I misclick right there. Did you guys see that? I misclick the swap, which means Trevenant gets... they get to the Shadow Ball here. Had I swapped right away, I think I would have gotten the Bubble Beam, which means the Shadow Ball wouldn't have done as much damage, which means I survive. And I did a slight misclick. It was so bad. Oh, I'm kicking myself that I misclicked right there. That's okay. We got a Ferrothorn mirror fight now, which is always interesting because you don't know what charge moves they have, but now I do. This is Mirror Shot. That's way too quick to be anything else. So it is going to be the Mirror Shot, which means we can easily take this one. And in fact, our backline is going to be a lot safer, because if they only have Mirror Shot and Power Whip, then we don't have to worry about the Thunder super effective damage that can basically one-shot the Mantine and do a ton of damage to Tentacruel. So the Mirror Shot right here, not doing too much. Yes, they are constantly chipping me down, and thankfully I'm not getting debuffed. But overall, Thunder is putting in a lot of work, and I think Thunder did very well for me at pressuring other Pokemon that we are going to see later in this video, like a Pelipper, for example. So we're going to go ahead and let these charge moves go through, as Mirror Shot doesn't do too much damage. And then we're just going to keep loading up here. They go for another mirror shot, which is fine. Not too worried about it. And let's see how this plays out. They're deciding to stand still, and now they swap out into Roserade. And this is where I was talking about. Roserade could be very deadly because of Weather Ball. Now, I'm going to go ahead and respect the potential Leaf Storm right here, but they show they actually have Grass Knot, so we're going to go ahead and let the next one go through. Now, I decided to go for the Ice Beam for the KO. This is a similar situation with the Trevenant safe swap, where I'm guessing they might not shield, but in fact, they do. So that's okay. We can go ahead and no-shield this, knowing that it's not Leaf Storm. If it is Leaf Storm, but like, geez. But it's going to be Grass Knot, so we can survive and now fully farm down, as they won't be able to get to the Weather Ball in time. Okay, so we have, and I blind through the Ice Beam. I thought the Mantine was going to be coming, or not the Mantine, the Ferrothorn. I'm using a Mantine. I thought Ferrothorn was coming back in, and so I blind through the Ice Beam, but it's actually going to be an Empoleon. So this still works out okay, as we did some decent chip damage with Ice Beam, and now Bubble Beam does the attack debuff for us. And now Tentacruel is going to close this game out. There's really nothing they can do. Their own Ferrothorn, yes, it has some loaded energy, but it's honestly not going to do enough damage to take out both Tentacruel and my own Ferrothorn, and they decided to let the Scald go through. Now they swap into their Ferrothorn, so I'm going to go ahead and swap now into mine, and this is just a checkmate, basically, because Tentacruel with a shield can close this game out, as they do decide to let the Power Whip through. Again, I'm not shielding anything. They've shown that they just love throwing mirror shots over and over, so we're just going to go ahead and just try to farm down, because I don't want the Empoleon to like throw a charge move, under tap it, and then farm me down and then somehow KO my Tentacruel. So we're just going to go ahead and go straight fast moves, forcing their Ferrothorn to throw all of its energy, because yes, it KOs my own Ferrothorn, but the win con here is with Tentacruel and a shield, because 2 Drill Pecks is what KOs a Tentacruel, but we have 1 shield, so we can stop one of them. So that's going to be a good game, very well played, as we can fast move down. As you guys are going to see, this next Drill Peck is going to land, and it does a respectable amount of neutral damage, but ultimately we can win with fast moves. Good game. All right, moving into the next one. Got a squeaky chair. We have Ferrothorn versus Trevenant once again on the lead. So we're going to go ahead and swap out right away, get ahead on energy, and they're deciding to now swap out into the Lantern. And this is perfect. If there are Lanterns on the opponent's team, you either catch it on the lead or you draw it out with Tentacruel. This has been a proven, tried and true method in the Open Great League and now in this meta, because that is going to be the best answer on their team to a water type Pokemon. And we let the Surf go through, which works out really well for us, because now we can get another Acid Spray off, which is going to be a good chunk of damage right here. And we got a shield. Now, in that situation, you could go for Scald as well, which does do quite a bit of damage, and you can flip the game around. But they're going to go ahead and farm us down, and we get the Lantern low enough where now we can load up on energy with Ferrothorn, and we don't have to worry about the charge moves. Everything's resisted right here, so we can safely let this go. Now, what's cool about Ferrothorn is, unfortunately, we weren't able to get enough energy for a power-up, so I'm going to have to swap out right away into my Mantine, as it should be relatively safe, as we do see them swap now into a Tentacruel. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, where I'm going to Bubble Beam them, but they're going to Acid Spray me. It's going to be a back and forth right here, and this is a situation where maybe Aerial Ace could have really helped me out. So I'm going to go ahead and no shield. I think my win condition here is with Ferrothorn with some shields. Now I might have to shield once, depending on how deep we go right here, but we're just going to go ahead and keep going for Bubble Beams to debuff the Tentacruel. And now this is where I'm going to go ahead and look to, I actually think I look to shield right here. Yeah, I do. I was afraid of a potential like Scald, like a sneaky Scald coming through, because that resisted damage would have added up. And this is where I go for the Ice Beam, which is where I wish I had the Aerial Ace, because that would have done a lot better. And now Ferrothorn can come in and load up on energy, as they instead of swapping out, they decide to throw the Acid Spray for the matchup now versus Trevenant. So this is a tough situation. I lost count of the charge move, so I'm going to go ahead, or their energy, so I shield, and it was a Seed Bomb. I'm like, that might have sealed it for me, unfortunately. So we're going to go ahead and go for Power Up right here, and look at that damage. Like, even though Trevenant is a good counter, Power Whip doing like 30% right there is beautiful. It forces shields now, and we actually have a potential win condition right here, as we're going to go ahead and try to commit to the farm down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I went for Bubble Beam. You guys can feel the frustration right here. I should have farmed down. I should have, I lose if I throw the charge move. We're actually going to rewind that because this is a really good learning situation. So, I lose if I throw the charge move against Trevenant. I lose if the Trevenant gets the Seed Bomb off. But what you guys are going to see is right there, if I go, instead of clicking on Bubble Beam, if I go for the wing attack, I actually take out the Trevenant, I think. It was so close, and then I could have Ice Beamed the Tentacruel on the back end. So that is just, I lose if they get it, right? And I lose if I throw the energy. So I just secured a lose condition for myself, basically, right there. So that's just a great lesson for you guys to learn and adjust, and for me to adjust in the future. But good battle. All right, moving to the next one. We have Ferrothorn on the lead versus Pelipper. So here's that Pelipper we were talking about, and this is why I love Thunder. Now, they decided to swap out into Trevenant, so we're going to go ahead and bring in that Mantine right away. And we need to respect the potential Shadow Ball right here. So we're going to go ahead and shield, as we're just going to go straight for Ice Beams as well. So it is a Shadow Ball, which is beautiful. We can now load up on energy and go for the Ice Beam right here. If they decide to shield, I'll go deep into shields with them. But let's see what they decide to do. They let it go. Boom! See you, Trevenant. Landed all the Ice Beams versus Trevenant today. It's beautiful. All right, now Pelipper's going to come back in, so we're actually going to go ahead and go for the shield bait right here with the Bubble Beam, because now this is going to force them, well, they do decide to shield, but it also drops that attack, and now it forces them to have to throw the Hurricane before I get to an Ice Beam. And I'm not going to shield. There's really no reason to. And I can come in with the Ferrothorn right now, load up, and they have a Wheezing in the back, a Galarian Wheezing. So this thing is actually pretty scary. Fairy Wind, Overheat, and Brutal Swing is the most common moveset, and Brutal Swing does do a good amount of damage. So we're going to go ahead and go for Acid Spray right now. My hope is that I can just Poison Jab, Acid Spray this thing down. But now they're starting to put some fear into me of a potential Overheat. And Overheat does a ton of damage, but ultimately I'm going to call it and no shield. And it was just another Brutal Swing, which is perfect. This now allows me to safely look to shield right here and try to commit to the farm down, but I clicked on Acid Spray, so I'm going to go ahead and undercharge the Acid Spray in case they let it go. And they actually decided to shield, so now I'm going to be able to farm down, but they'd instead swap to Pelipper, and this is why I love having Thunder, is because it just booms this thing out of the sky. Mantines, Tentacruels, and Pelippers, boom! See ya! And now they won't have enough time to farm me down, or to get to an Overheat and a Brutal Swing, so good game. All right, moving to the final battle, we have Ferrothorn versus Mantine on the lead. So again, having Thunder in this situation is very nice. I know PV Poke says Flash Cannon, but that's more for the neutral damage to some of those grasses like Trevenant. I can remember Trevenant. For example, you do a lot more damage in that situation, but ultimately I think the Thunder secures matchups that you really need to have locked down, as they decide to go for Aerial Ace right there, and I'm expecting them to potentially swap at some point, so I need to be kind of careful right here. I'm going to go ahead and let this charge move go through. It is just going to be the Bubble Beam, and now I'm going to look to go for the Thunder. This is a really good opportunity for me to take lead and energy shield advantage, so we can go ahead and farm down. This is now a very good situation. So we see them swap into Shadow Mawile, so I'm going to go ahead and swap into Tentacruel right away, and they bring in the Tentacruel. So that's a good game. You know, just like we said before, the Vigoroth mirror, the Tentacruel mirror is the exact same way, where we just go for Acid Spray, and now we are so far ahead that there's really nothing they can do. We're going to easily win this mid-game matchup. We have Mantine with Bubble Beam for the Mawile. Now we can go for the Scald. This is just so good, going for the Acid Spray first and then Scald, especially when you're ahead on energy, because it's just the sequence that you need to do. We can safely shield this charge move now, as it could be a Scald, which, no, it's going to be another Acid Spray. That's fine, and now I can farm down right here. And I'm going to look to actually go for a Scald here versus the Mawile. Now, this is troublesome because I think this is just going to be a power-up punch. They didn't have enough time to get to another charge move, so we survive. And I'm hoping this actually lands. I hope they think that this is an Acid Spray debuff, so we can just go straight for Scald, but they do decide to shield, so that's okay. We're going to go ahead and swap into Mantine now and go for Bubble Beam. Now, there is a lose condition for us here in this game, and that is if we shield the next power-up punch. If we shield this, and this is power-up punch, and then they get to a Play Rough in time. So we're going to go ahead and no shield it, and it was a power-up punch, because the damage from Play Rough, and they decide to surrender right there, the damage from Play Rough wasn't going to be enough because we Bubble Beamed, so it basically negated the power-up punch damage. So we had to, if we shielded that power-up punch and then they go for player up, that's how we lose the game. But ultimately, this team actually did very well for me. A lot of positive sets today with it. It handled tough situations. I know I made some mistakes as well, but if I make a mistake, that means there was an opportunity for a win con in a really bad situation of like triple hard counters like we saw today. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Be sure to give this team a try. All the Pokemon are fantastic and also strong, I think, in open Great League in some like niche anti-meta situations. So Ferrothorn, for example, Power Whip and Thunder, that handles stuff like Swampert and Lantern, and also the Thunder for stuff like Noctowl. So really cool Pokemon that you guys can give a try for the Spring Cup. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and like always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.